To Marcus Carlson. Marcus, we were mentioning earlier about the strike in South Africa, and that's hitting currencies again there.
Yes, indeed. We're going to start with looking at currencies in emerging markets. There have been jitters in the past week over emerging market currencies, but this Thursday we've seen currencies like the Turkish lira, the South African rand, and also the Russian ruble rebound somewhat. Still, though, those concerns remain as there are fears that growth in countries like China and South Africa is coming down. The Turkish lira has also attracted attention on political turmoil in Turkey. Earlier, I spoke to Christian Lawrence at Rabobank about the currency moves. He says that some emerging market currencies may start trading higher.
When the currency starts to weaken, we start to get to a point where valuations start to look attractive. So some of the more savvy investors that perhaps have a greater knowledge of the individual emerging market economies will start to pick up some of the cheaper assets. And when they do that, that will start to feed through to the currency eventually and provide a bit of strength there. But it's certainly the case that the weaker economies, such as Turkey, such as South Africa, their currencies are likely to stay under pressure for some time.
So some emerging market currencies, they're more vulnerable than others.
That's certainly the case, but the current stage of the sell-off, we're just seeing everything sold. Everything's being grouped together. But I do expect that to start to change over the coming weeks, and the market will start to become slightly more selective in which currencies it's selling and which it's starting to buy.
We have seen a lot of central bank action in the past 48, 72 hours, but it doesn't seem as if it's helped. Why is that? Do you think that central banks in emerging economies are basically powerless?
Well, it's much harder to strengthen your currency than it is to weaken it. So we've seen a number of attempts to try and support currencies through direct intervention in the FX market, whereby the central bank will sell any foreign currencies it owns in order to buy its domestic currency to try and provide some support. The trouble with that is central banks only have a limited amount of foreign currency to sell, and the market knows this.
OK, that was Christian Lawrence speaking to me there earlier. Now, concerns over emerging markets have weighed on global shares in the past week or so. This Thursday, though, a stronger than expected reading of US growth is supporting stocks. Figures show that the US economy grew by 3.2% in the fourth quarter. That's in comparison to the fourth quarter in 2012. It follows a 4.1% growth figure from the third quarter. Overall, the US economy saw its strongest half-year increase since 2003. So basically good news all around there over in the United States. And in the United States, we're seeing US stocks trading up on the back of the reading on fourth quarter growth. As you can see here, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up almost a percent, whereas the Nasdaq is up at 1.9%. Here in Europe, it was more of a mixed bag at the close, with the FTSE in London losing some steam. Shares in spirits maker Diageo led the fall in London as it announced a weakness in emerging markets is hurting sales. Looking at some other individual stocks, shares in Facebook, they're soaring after stronger than expected results for the fourth quarter. It comes as the social network says that more than half of its advertising revenues now come from mobile. It's seen as a milestone as investors have worried about Facebook's viability on mobile devices. Shares in Google, they're higher after it announced the sale of mobile phone maker Motorola Mobility. The Chinese company Lenovo is the buyer in a deal valued at $2.9 billion. Google bought Motorola Mobility 2 years ago for $12.4 billion. Despite the much lower sale price, investors appear to be welcoming the sale. Google keeps many of Motorola's patents, and the deal also allows Google to focus on software. Here in Europe, shares in Shell gained somewhat. It came as the Anglo-Dutch oil company suspended a controversial drilling program in the Arctic. It's part of a wider drive to cut spending and make operations more efficient. Shell is under pressure to improve profitability as it reported a fourth quarter profit of $1.8 billion. That's 74% less than during the same period in 2012. And here's another company in the spotlight. Executives at Nintendo, the creator of Super Mario Bros., are cutting their own salaries. They're under pressure to revive sales, and the entire company, which is under pressure in a shrinking game consoles market. Delana D'Souza has more.
The games will continue according to Nintendo's president. Satoru Iwata has refused changing the company's direction away from consoles. Despite weak demand, console prices will not be slashed. Instead, executive pay will be cut. The company has been criticized for failing to incorporate smartphones and tablets into its business. One analyst, however, feels differently.
Nintendo is in a really difficult position right now. So I think that by putting their games on smartphones, for example, this is probably the biggest piece of advice that many people are giving the company at the moment. I think that this would ultimately kill Nintendo.
Nintendo faces criticism for limited game selection compared with rival Sony's PS4 and Microsoft's Xbox. The maker of iconic games such as Super Mario and Donkey Kong has so far resisted licensing games for use on mobile apps. Gamers themselves are split.
I don't think they should get into smartphones. When I like a game, I buy the console made for the game. It's not something I economize on.
Games on smartphones are developing more and more. And what Nintendo's doing, well, people are using consoles less.
The $44 billion video games market has faced tough competition from cheap games downloaded onto smartphones and tablets. Nintendo also announced initial plans to enter the healthcare industry.
Okay, not game over just yet there for Nintendo. And with that, I'm going to throw it back to you, Francois.
All right, many thanks. Marcus Carlson with the latest business news in sports. Well, all eyes are on